What a wonderful weather. A pleasant morning in northern Ontario. It's as if the heaven is right in front of us.
Except it isn't pleasant, it is always gloomy, it's cold as hell, and I want to kill myself. Isn't there anything to cheer myself? You're watching Flat Out Drive. My name is Vijay, and this is 2020 Land Rover Range Rover Evoque. First off, I have to say I really like this car, but there are three things that I don't like about it. I named them RPF. We'll talk about it more in a second. This particular Evoque is in its P250 form, which gets 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that puts out 246 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque. There is another version for this drivetrain. You can get a 48-volt hybrid engine that puts out 296 horsepower, but this engine in its current form, this is all you need. It's really peppy, and for puttering around town you don't need more than this. But if you have to compare this with its German competitors, it is slower than them. Land Rover claims that this Evoque does 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds, which is slower than a BMW X1 or a Mercedes GLC, and they handle better than this. But this has some charm to it. It has its own speciality. But talking about the engine, there is one thing that I don't like. There is an obvious turbo lag. There is a full 2-second lag for this engine. When you put your foot down, there it goes. So this turbo lag means that you have to drive around it. But in the city there is torque down low, so you don't really need to push it. But up top on the highway speeds, there is obviously some calculation that you have to do. Like if you have to pass someone, you should have pressed the throttle 3 seconds ago. I think you know what I mean. The power comes in chunks. It's not predictable at high speeds, but once you get used to it, I think you'll get an idea of where you are situated in the power band. The transmission we have is 9-speed. The engineer said Land Rover likes odd numbers, like I like this transmission. It does the job moving around the city, getting groceries and whatever. It is quick. It is quicker than the turbo spool, but in sport mode, it doesn't let you rev out the engine. It auto upshifts like most of the manufacturer does. Let us shift our gears in sport mode at least. But at low speeds, the transmission kind of feels jerky, especially when you're in traffic. Pretend there's a car in front. Now I've slowed down for the car, and again I tried to accelerate. There is a slight jerkiness. There's this couple of stops before you get up to speed. It's very minimal, but if you have keen observation skills, or if you are picky as me, you'll notice there is a little bit of jitter to it. But up top at high speeds, the transmission is smooth. For highway driving, this is a perfect vehicle. And the brakes are really good on this. This particular Evoque weighs around 4100 pounds, and the brakes on this really hold their weight. Like, let's try to do a quick stop on this road and see there's no one else. So see, that is a pretty aggressive stop, and that's what you need on a big vehicle like this. And the other thing I really like about this car is the steering. I mean, it doesn't have any feedback to it whatsoever, and it doesn't weight up as much as I would like it to, but there is this sharpness to it. It's really sharp, and the steering ratio is also very sharp. You can point this car and shoot out the corners with confidence. On the road in comfort mode, this feels like a well-handling minivan. Now I know comparing this to a minivan is an extreme thing. It handles similar to it, but the handling capabilities are far more better than a minivan. Why I say that is there is a constant side-to-side jostle. Even if you're driving on a straightaway, you always feel your head is kind of tossed very slightly. You won't notice it for the most part, but again, if you are picky, you will find your head getting tossed a little. Even when I'm going bumps, it takes a little more time to settle. I think it is intentional. They could have made the suspension a little stiff, but being this is a Range Rover's luxury product, there is rebound happening on bumps. This is something that you won't get from the Germans. Their suspension is more like one and done. If you hit a bump, you get over it. But with Range Rover, there is this waftiness on the road. Now this waftiness, few people will like it, few people will not, because it compromises a little bit of handling capabilities. But it makes up on off-roading, which we'll talk about in a second. Otherwise, the ride is very plush. You can eat miles and miles on this car. It's a good highway cruiser. Now, there's this unquantifiable thing with Range Rovers, with any Range Rover, not just Evoque. This commands attention on the road. It does it better than any other competitors, like the Germans. Sure, a BMW looks sporty and a GLC looks flashy, but this Range Rover, it's sure got coolness to it. It's an intangible thing and you can't really measure it. But still, the cool factor of Range Rovers is really great. If you see one on the road, you just keep staring at it. You feel like you're king of the road, or at least the king of the crossover world. The suspension makes you feel like you can go over any terrain, be it snow, be it mud, be it gravel. This takes it like a champ. You have lots of confidence going over the roads. But the true abilities of a Range Rover is not on a regular road where 90% of the people who buy this drive. But for the remaining 10%, if you take it to an off-road, it does the job like no other crossover does. The particular road I am in now is very bumpy and it has a lot of loose surface on it. But this, it just goes. There's nothing stopping this. A road like this is where you get your tax-saving money back that you spent on buying this thing. There are quite a lot of bumps, but I'm feeling nothing. It feels like it can take more. The car is asking more, but I'm not able to give that. It feels like a similar feeling in a bad way. Alright, in the interior of 2020 Land Rover Range Rover Evoque. So this interior, when it came out, it was all new. They redesigned the whole car from ground up. And they have continued the same design style even in the new Evoque as well. This interior, after being 4 years old, it held up really well. The material is still new. And there is this kind of plastic, but it is soft. It looks like it's plastic, but that's put together well. But there are a few creaks here and there that have developed over time. I think those are very minimal. The infotainment here, it is really good. This is integrated well into the center console here. It folds in. On startup, it pops out, and you can actually adjust the amount of angle it resides on, so it's pretty customizable. But there is the problem with this infotainment. It is quite laggy. I don't know if they intentionally did that 1 second delay to feel it like it is a luxury brand, or it's just how it is. But for my taste, and many others have complained this, I think it is a bit laggy. But the infotainment screen takes ages to boot up as well. You could go and grab a coffee and make breakfast for yourself and it still keeps loading. So they should have sped it up a little, but I hope they updated it for the new generation or new model. And this have a wired CarPlay, not wireless. That works pretty well. It's quick. And the controls on the center dash here are all touch based. They don't have haptic feedback, and I wish they kind of gave a sensation that you're pressing buttons somehow, because when you're driving and you're on the go, your finger is not stable and you have to touch a very tiny button here, and you wouldn't know if you have hit it or not. You have to look down, and this is kind of tedious. But I wish they had introduced the haptic feedback even in the later generations. You have two knobs here. If you press it, it'll take you to the seat settings, and if you press it again, it'll take you to the temperature settings. So that's very intuitive. And you have your modes to select here, and the climate and the seats. Everything is laid out in the central console. Even though it's not buttons, it's always there. So you don't need to go search it inside the infotainment. The shift knob is pretty easy to use. You have these memory seats on the side. There are 3 options, and there are 3 options on the passenger side as well. The seats are very comfortable. The 12-way support is really good. The seats, they are soft. They are like sitting on a sofa, but a small sofa, because they're very narrow. They tend to not hold you really well. You will feel like you are an overflowing blob. Coming to the steering wheel, I really like the steering wheel. It is really big. It particularly resembles me of an elephant. So this is really well done. This is pretty big, and it suits the personality of the car really well. And the gauge cluster, it's all digital gauge cluster, and it has way many options to customize. It's too much busy for me because I don't need those many options. But if you are the one who likes a lot of options in your car, then that's perfectly for you. It's really easy to read. This has the Meridian sound system. It has a lot of bass to it. There's crisp sounds as well. So I really like this. It really complements the car's interior. And you have this big sunroof here. It's not a sunroof per se, it's just a glass roof, but it's really big. It goes all the way back. Now, this is where I start complaining about stuff. Now, at the start, I told you I didn't like 3 things about this car. Those are reliability, price, and functionality. As you all know, Range Rover products are deemed to be not reliable. It's not my personal experience, but I've heard a lot of anecdotes. Even the owner of this particular car, he had an AC trouble that happened, which this car had to tow back to the dealership, which is 700 kilometers away, because we don't have a Range Rover dealership where I live. So they had to tow this car. Thankfully, he has the warranty, so everything is covered by the warranty. But imagine if you're owning a car and you don't have the warranty for it, you have to pay a pretty penny to get it fixed. And the other thing is functionality. If you're sitting in the front seats, everything is good, everything is luxurious. But when you go to the back, there starts the trouble. This is a compact SUV, but still it is, for this price, there should be enough space in the back to sit. If I sit in the back, I barely fit with my driving position. I have to sit upright to be comfortable. And I couldn't do long journeys in this car in the back seat. But in the front seat, it's a different thing. And even the boot space, it's not big. You can fit me, but you can't fit more bags or anything. It's good for only like 6 checked in bags. Even the size of this vehicle, it looks big on the outside, but it's as big as a Kona N or a regular Kona. The other thing I am concerned about is the price. So this car, when it came new, it costs around $55,000 now. So that is not less. The current model, I think it's starting at $62,000. You have a lot of other options to buy at this price point. You can buy an X1, BMW X1. You can buy a Mercedes GLC. They are way better than this and more focused on driving than luxury. But they do luxury quite good as well. But as I talked before, there is this unquantifiable thing with Range Rovers that you don't get anywhere else. On the road, this is a superior vehicle to look at. To drive it, maybe talk to someone else.
So, the Range Rover Evoque is a perfect marriage between luxury and off-roading. But one thing for sure is, there's nothing like a Range Rover on the road. Except for another Range Rover. That is a lot of Range Rovers in a sentence. Alright then, thank you for watching.